Hello! Today I'm going to show you how to back up your files using Linux CLI or command line interface using AhsayOBM. The video will be in two parts. For the first part, I'm going to show you how to create and configure a backup set using Linux CLI. And for the second part, I'm going to show you how to add Ahsay Drive as your destination storage via the web console and how to run a backup using Linux CLI. Let's go to my screen and get started. Connect to a Linux machine using an SSH client like PuTTY. Log into the root account. Change directory to the bin folder of OBM by entering the following cd command. Enter the following sh script to launch AhsayOBM. Choose option 1 and enter your login credentials. Select option 5 to generate a new backup set. Choose option 1 for file backup. After choosing option 1, AhsayOBM will create an XML file and save it in the .obm folder. You can configure the backup set settings by using a text editor. You can either quit the runconfigurator.sh script or open a new SSH session to edit the XML file. For our example, I will choose option 8 to quit and then go to the path indicated to edit the XML file. Configure the XML file by using a text editor. I'm going to use VI to configure the backup set settings. Enter the following to open the text editor. After entering the text editor, we are going to configure the following settings. Backup set name, temporary directory for storing backup files, remove temporary files after backup, compression type, backup files permissions, follow link of the backup files, selected source, deselected source, enable scheduled backup, daily settings. For our example, we will use a daily backup set at 8 p.m. So we are going to remove the weekly, monthly, and custom setting. Name of the schedule, start hour, start minute, duration of the backup, interval, name of your destination, directory to store your backup files, enable the duplication, and the duplication scope. In order to configure the settings of the backup set XML file, we need to input the required settings in the value data field inside the text editor. For the backup set name, I'm going to input file backup Linux CLI as our backup set name. The temp folder is the default location where AhsayOBM temporarily stores backup set index files and temporary restore files. The best practice is to set the temporary directory to another local drive for optimal backup and restore performance. It should not be located on the same partition as the operating system, because if that drive fills up, it could cause the backup machine to crash, preventing your backup from running or completing. It shouldn't also be set to a network drive, as it could affect both backup and restore performance. For the temporary directory for storing backup files, I'm going to input the path /mnt/data/temp, which is outside the root folder to store the temporary files in. For the remove temporary files after backup, the default value is Y for yes. We'll leave it on the default setting for our example, which removes the temporary files after a backup job has finished. For the support of opening backup data directly without restoration, the default value is N for no. We'll leave it to the default setting for our example because this setting is only supported on file backup sets created and backed up on Windows platform. For the compression type, I'm going to input gzip default compression for normal compression for our example. You can change the compression type at any time after the backup set has been created. For backup files permission, the default value is Y for yes. We'll leave it to the default setting in order to backup operating system file permission of the data selected in our backup source. For following of the backup files, the default value is Y for yes. We'll use the default setting and keep it on as if you have any symlink selected in the backup source. The files and folders that they are referencing to will also be included in the backup even if the original files were not selected. Next is selecting the backup source for our file backup. I want to backup the root account's documents, music, videos, pictures, and a folder named My Work Files that has a symlink to another drive. In order to enter multiple selected sources, you would need to copy the whole key script and enter the path to the files and folders that you want to backup. To select the documents folder, I will enter the path /root/documents in the value data field. To select the music folder, I will enter the path /root/music in the value data field. To select the videos folder, I will enter the path /root/videos in the value data field. To select the pictures folder, I will enter the path /root/pictures in the value data field. To select the folder that I created with symlinks, I will enter the path /root/my-workfiles in the value data field. This folder has a symbolic link to a folder on another drive with the same name. Next is the selected source. These are the files and folders that you want to exclude from the backup. For example, I'm going to input /root/.obm and /usr/local/obm and /mnt/data/temp as the deselected sources. The .obm folder contains the user information, while the OBM folder contains the AhsayOBM application. The temp folder is where we will be storing our temporary files. If we exclude these three folders from the backup, it will prevent any backup and restore performance issue. Next is schedule settings. For our example, we will create a daily backup set at 8 p.m. Input Y for yes to enable scheduled backup. In order to create a daily backup set at 8 p.m., we need to configure the daily settings only. You can set a scheduled backup for weekly, monthly, and a custom setting, but we don't need to configure them for our example, so we will be removing those sections in the XML file. Enter the name of the schedule in the value data field. I will input daily backup at 2000 hours. Enter 20 for the start hour and 0 for the start minute in order to set the schedule at 2000 hours or 8 p.m. For the duration of the backup, you can enter an integer to set the duration of the backup in hours or enter -1 to set it to wait until the backup finishes. For our example, we will input -1 to run a backup job until it finishes. For the interval, you can choose from the choices listed on screen if you want a backup job to run at an interval in a specified number of minutes or hours. Alternatively, you can set it to -1 for a non-periodic normal schedule. For our example, we will set it to -1 and not use an interval for our scheduled backup. For the destination setting of our backup set, this will be separated into two parts. First, I will discuss how to add a local folder as the destination of our backup, and then later on, I will discuss how to add Assay drive as our destination storage. The default setting is set to local destination settings, which means that the backup will be saved locally on the machine. Under the destination settings, set the concurrency level to 1 as we will save our backup to a local folder for now. Enter a name for your destination. I will input local backup as the name of my destination and enter the path to where the backup will be saved. I will input the path /mnt/data/local-backup as this is the folder that I created to store the backup files. For the deduplication settings, we have a choice to enable or disable it. Enabling deduplication will remove duplicate copies of the data that helps save up to 50% of storage space for file backups. For the scope of the deduplication, we have a choice of whether it would cover the same file path within the same backup set or all files within the same backup set. If you select same file path within the same backup set, the deduplication applies to the current backup job and it applies to the duplicated contents within a file. If you select all files within the same backup set, the deduplication applies across different files in the backup set. For our example, we will enable the duplication and choose all files within the same backup set as the scope. Enter Y for yes and B for all files within the same backup set in their respective value data fields. When you're done editing the XML file, press Escape, then type :WQ to save the changes made. Go back to the bin folder by typing cd/usr/local/obm/bin, then enter the sh script sh run configurator.sh to launch AhsayOBM. Log into AhsayOBM again using your credentials. Choose option 4 to input the backup set settings file that we edited earlier. It will verify the data provided, and if there are no errors, it will prompt you if you'd like to encrypt your backup. Select Y to enable encryption. AhsayOBM will then give you 3 options for encryption. You can choose between default, user password, and custom. For our example, we will choose option 1 for default, and it will use Ahsay's AES 256-bit data encryption to generate a 44 alphanumeric character encryption key to encrypt your backup set. Remember, once you have selected the encryption settings, it cannot be changed afterwards. If you need to change the encryption settings, you would need to create a brand new backup set and back up all your data again. Choose option 1 to view the list of backup sets available. Then choose option 1 again to select the backup set that we just created. After choosing the backup set, it will display all the settings that we entered in the XML file. Also, it will show the encryption key for the backup set. It is important to keep a copy of the encryption key because if you forget or lose your encryption key, you will lose the ability to access and restore your backup data. Once you have secured the encryption key, choose option 8 and quit AhsayOBM and open your web browser in order to add Ahsay drive to our destination storage. Open your web browser, then log into your backup server. Click the user tile, select Backup Set tab, and then click on the backup set that we just created. Select the Destination tab, change the backup mode to Concurrent, as we will be adding a destination storage aside from a local backup. When you have more than one destination storage, it is recommended to choose concurrent as the backup mode. For our example, we will select unlimited for the maximum concurrent backup destinations, but you can change this later on. Next, click on the plus icon to add a new destination storage. Choose Assay Drive, then click on the plus icon on the lower right to save the changes. Assay Drive has now been added to the backup destination storage. Click on the save icon on the lower right to save the changes. Go back to PuTTY and then log in to AhsayOBM again. View the list of backup sets and select the backup set that we just created. Assay Drive should now be added to the destination name. Verify if the scheduled backup settings are correct. Exit AhsayOBM and enter the command cat/root/obm/scheduler/debug.log to view if the scheduled backup is running with the correct settings. As you can see here, the scheduled backup settings are correct and the next backup will run in 4 hours and 59 minutes, which is correct because we set our scheduled backup for 8 p.m. tonight. To run a backup job, enter the following sh script along with the name of your backup set. Your files have been successfully backed up by AhsayOBM. And that's how you back up your files on Linux CLI using AhsayOBM. With Ahsay, your data is fully protected. Armed with the latest technology like immutable backups, where your backup data will never be encrypted, deleted, or modified for total protection against hackers and ransomware. Strong AES 256-bit data encryption ensures that your data is encrypted during transit and when your data is stored, to prevent anyone from reading your data without your permission. Two-factor authentication, to prevent anyone from accessing your data without your permission. Multi-destination backups, to store your backup data in more than one storage destination and across many geographical regions, for maximum protection against natural disasters, fire, or conflicts. And data deduplication, a feature that removes duplicate copies of data that helps you save up to 90% of your storage space, with significant savings on your data storage cost as well as faster backups. That's why you should choose Ahsay. Your data is safe with us.